Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty does not obligate automatic US military deployment. It states that responses must align with respective constitutional processes, meaning Congress must authorize offensive action. This legal nuance debunks any idea of NATO spontaneously recruiting China or Russia. Many people assume that when an ally is attacked, the United States must instantly send its military under NATO's Article 5. That's not what the text actually says. To understand why, you need to examine the precise wording of the treaty. Article 5 clearly states that each member nation will take action, and I'm quoting here, including the use of armed force as it deems necessary. But there's a crucial qualifier embedded in that sentence. All such action must be taken in accordance with their respective constitutional processes. For the United States, that means Congress holds the ultimate authority to declare war or authorize prolonged military engagement. This legal phrasing directly contradicts the idea of automatic troop deployment. Even when NATO invoked Article 5 for the first and only time after the 9/11 attacks, the response was anything but immediate or uniform. Allies like Germany still had to secure parliamentary approval before deploying forces, demonstrating that each nation's domestic laws took precedence over alliance obligations. Article 11 of the NATO Treaty reinforces this principle. It states that the treaty must be carried out by members in accordance with their respective constitutional processes, echoing the language in Article 5 and making it clear that national sovereignty isn't overridden by collective defense. This was intentional. The framers of the US Constitution deliberately separated war powers to prevent any single branch of government from unilaterally committing the nation to armed conflict. That constitutional firewall means there's no scenario where the US could be forced into a military operation without congressional approval. This structural safeguard makes the notion of spontaneous partnership with strategic rivals like China or Russia legally unworkable. Alliance decisions go through deliberate, lawful channels, not emergency backroom deals. What many don't realize is that the War Powers Resolution of 1973 created another legal barrier against rapid military escalation. This legislation specifically addresses how treaties like NATO interact with presidential authority. The resolution states clearly that authorization to introduce US forces into hostilities shall not be inferred from any treaty unless implementing legislation specifically approves such use. That means NATO's Article 5 by itself does not grant the president power to commit troops without congressional approval. The treaty and the law work together, but domestic statute holds ultimate authority. Once forces are introduced into potential conflict, the clock starts ticking. The president has 60 days to secure congressional authorization for continued military engagement. If Congress doesn't approve, those troops must be withdrawn. This isn't just a theoretical limit. It's been tested in multiple military engagements, where presidents faced pushback from lawmakers over the scope and duration of deployments. This system creates what you might call a double lock mechanism against impulsive military action. Even if NATO members collectively decide to respond to an attack, the US cannot participate in sustained combat operations without clear congressional consent. That means no long-term deployments, no open-ended engagements, and certainly no spontaneous partnerships with strategic competitors. When we apply this to potential Article 5 scenarios, the implications become clear. A NATO response would require not just alliance consensus, but also domestic legal clearance from each member nation. For the United States, that means hearings, debates, and votes, a process utterly incompatible with rushed collaboration with adversaries. These constraints demonstrate why the US could not legally enter into military cooperation with China or Russia through NATO channels. Such action would violate both the letter and spirit of the War Powers Resolution, not to mention foundational constitutional principles separating treaty powers from war powers. The resolution ensures that collective defense remains a deliberative process, not an automatic trigger. Before a situation ever escalates to Article 5, NATO has another tool for managing tensions. Article 4. This provision allows any member to request consultations when they believe their territorial integrity or security is threatened. Unlike the collective defense mechanism, Article 4 is purely consultative. It triggers discussion, not deployment. In February 2022, as Russian forces massed near Ukraine's borders, several NATO members invoked Article 4. This wasn't a call to arms, but rather a formal request for alliance-wide consultation. What followed weren't military plans, but diplomatic meetings where members shared intelligence, assessed risks, and aligned their political responses. The process emphasized deliberation over decisive action. Article 4 functions as an early warning system and pressure release valve. It allows member states to voice concerns without automatically escalating to military posturing. The consultations create a structured environment where allies can coordinate positions, gauge consensus, and evaluate options through dialogue. This process often results in political statements, sanctions coordination, or enhanced surveillance rather than troop movements. The 2022 invocation demonstrates how NATO uses Article 4 to maintain alliance cohesion while avoiding rash decisions. Rather than immediately preparing military responses, members use the consultation mechanism to develop a unified diplomatic approach. This measured response contrasts sharply with the idea of NATO making hurried, desperate outreach to strategic competitors. This consultation requirement creates significant procedural hurdles against improvised partnerships. Any potential cooperation with non-member states would need to survive multiple rounds of alliance debate, national position forming, and consensus building. The very structure of Article 4 consultations makes spontaneous collaboration with adversaries institutionally impossible. Every member has veto power through disagreement. NATO's institutional culture favors cautious, consensus-driven responses over dramatic gestures. Article 4 embodies this preference for measured decision-making, ensuring that even in moments of high tension, the alliance moves deliberately rather than impulsively. This systematic approach to crisis management completely contradicts narratives about NATO desperately seeking assistance from geopolitical rivals. The legal architecture surrounding NATO creates multiple protective layers against sudden strategic shifts. Constitutional requirements, the War Powers Resolution, and treaty mechanisms like Article 4 consultation all ensure decisions are deliberate, not automatic. These constraints make radical pivots like seeking military aid from geopolitical rivals legally unworkable. The system prioritizes sovereignty, consensus, and congressional oversight over rushed alliances. This legal reality directly contradicts rumors of NATO reaching out to China or Russia. Such cooperation would violate both domestic laws and alliance principles, proving why these claims lack any foundation in how NATO actually operates under established legal frameworks.